watching my video. So today I'm bringing you something a little different. It is a video tutorial on how I built my 220 gallon tank stand for beginners. The reason I say beginners is because it was my third woodworking project ever. My first one was a fireplace cover that my daughter could use as a blackboard. My second one was a replica of this tank, which is the tank stand my 20 gallon sits in now. So I say beginners because half of the tools I bought for this project I never even used. So if I was able to build this stand, anyone could. I'm currently building a play kitchen for my daughter. Let me know if you would like me to upload that video so you could use it as well. These are my blueprints. I was a tank commander in the army, but when I had no tanks around me, I became a PowerPoint warrior. I have a bad memory, so I had to use these to help me remember all the measurements. So now, let's go ahead and check out the building part. Here is the wood I used to build the stand. Now let me tell you something. Since it was my tank, I did make a lot of modifications to it, and I ended up using more wood than I actually planned. So like I said, here's the wood I used to build the stand. I used 3 4x6s and 11 2x4s. You only see 8 here because I ended up buying 3 more to reinforce the tank a little bit more. One thing that you need to be aware of is make sure the wood that you purchase is all straight and doesn't bow. Like I said, it is my project that is this big, so I bought about 3 2x4s that I ended up exchanging because of the bad bow. Now, the edging and decorative part of the build can be done as you please. I bought all this stuff at Lowe's and they had a variety of different accents for you to choose from. Now, I built the stand in my garage. I made sure that the floor was level, or at least not on level too bad. The project took me about 2 weeks, not because that's how long it took me, but because I wasn't in a hurry at all to build the stand since my tank wasn't coming in till later. Now here are the supplies I used. 1 polyurethane clear gloss to protect the wood after the stain. And I actually used 2 cans of wood finish, and they have like 20 different colors for you to choose from, so pick whichever one you like. I used 1 box of exterior wood screws 10 by 2.5 inches and glue to glue the corner edges. Now I researched and asked people who do this for a living on what size of wood to use. So I ended up using 2x6s for the top of the tank stand and 2x4s for the bottom. Now I did not want to go overboard if I didn't have to. I mean, the stand is already heavy enough as it is, so why make it heavier if you don't really need to? Now this is one of the tools that I bought and I had never used before. I mean, the cuts on the 2x6s were very easy to make. Oh, one thing I almost forgot. Safety first. Make sure you always use eye protection and ear protection, and don't be afraid of the machine, or else the machine will hurt you. That's something I used to tell my soldiers back in the days. Now you have to be extremely precise on all your cuts because you do not want to have any reason for your tank stand not to be squared or level. Now the miter saw made it so easy to make these cuts. Before I had the meter saw, I was using the table saw to make cuts like this, and it was not as easy. After I cut all the wood into the desired size, I started to build the bottom part of the frame, as you see here. The clamps I also bought just for this project, as I thought it was a necessity to make sure that the tank was square. Now I looked everywhere for the 90-degree clamps, including online, and not a lot of places had them. The ones they had were too small or had to be set on the ground to be used. Luckily, Lowe's had these and they worked out perfectly. Now you want to make sure that the wood is leveled once you use the clamps, because they tend to shift or go whichever way they want as you tighten them up. This is why you don't want wood that is bowed, as it's gonna make it harder for you to square it out perfectly. Now I used 2 screws when connecting the frame together. In my blueprint you can see how many pieces of wood you need to cut and the sizes to make your life easier when you start to put the frame together. Now the box of screws that I bought come with the actual fillet bit to input into your screw gun, so you don't have to deal with making sure that you have the right bit for the screws. Now, excuse me, I don't have the best screw gun out there, but it did its job for the most part. So just make sure that your screw gun is not set to the most powerful setting, because you want to make sure they go in slow and easy, or else you might be in danger of breaking the piece of wood from the screw to the edge. Now the next step is finishing up the bottom part of the frame. The next step after finishing off the bottom of the frame, you can go ahead and do the top of the frame. Just repeat the process with 2x6s instead of 2x4s. I use 3 screws when I put the top of the frame together, since they were 2x6s. Now there is this guy who builds monster tanks, and he's fairly active on Facebook, and I asked him for some advice, and he's the one that told me to use 2x6s on top of the tank, so that the tank doesn't twist because of the weight. Now if anyone wants to build a tank with all 2x6s, by all means go for it. Just know that is not necessary. Now once you have both frames, you put one on top of the other and start screwing the wood that will determine the height of your tank. I wanted mine to be tall, as I am tall, and I wanted them to be eyesight when I was standing up. You can make whatever size you want, as long as it doesn't impact the strength of the tank at all. Here you can see I was not very pleased with my screw gun. It made my life a little hard a couple times, but I managed. Another thing is that when you put the wood together, you have to make sure that the center braces match each other to perfection. I used 3 on top and 2 on the bottom, matching the bottom ones with the top ones. The third one on the top of the tank on the 4x6s was just for more of a support thing. Now the tank is upside down, as you see here. After screwing all the frame together, I went ahead and doubled the support on the beams. Every single beam has double support, and the corners even have triple support. Now the triple support is not in my blueprints, as I had to use the table saw to cut the wood to perfection, to the perfect size, and I actually needed it so that I could screw the outside of the tank that you will see on the second part of the video. And here we go again with the battle that was ongoing with my screw gun. Now don't laugh too much. Remember, I am a beginner. Now another thing that was not on my blueprint was adding the extra center brace on the bottom of the frame. You will see every beam has a double center frame. I just wanted to make sure that the tank stand was as strong as possible I could make it. Now you see it here. Here's what I'm talking about with the double beams on the bottom. So that's another thing that you can add to your tank if that's what you please. Well folks, this wraps up the first half of my video on how I built my 220 gallon tank stand for beginners. Stay tuned for the next half of the video, where I deal with the outside of the tank stand, the staining, and the decor part of the stand. Hope you enjoyed the video, but most important of all, hope you have a great rest of your day.